The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel of Jesus according to Mark. Chapter 9, verses 30 to 37. Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee. But he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, "The Son of Man is to be handed over to men, and they will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all, and the servant of all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name, he receives me. And whoever receives me, receives not me, but the one who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Please be seated for the Holy.
Magandang araw po sa lahat. Bonjour. Good morning. Sino ba dito who among you wants to be the great or the greatest? Raise your right hand. Ayaw nyo? Talagang ayaw nyo? You don't want to be the greatest? One of the human desires in life is wanting to be great. And there's nothing wrong with it. However, it is important to know the real meaning of greatness, especially the Christian meaning of it. In the world we are living in, greatness means to be on top, to be number one. Kaya kung nakikita nyo, umuwi kayo ng Pilipinas, yung ABS-CBN, nag-claim sila number one. Yung GMA, number one sila. Kahit makikinig kayo sa ibang istasyon ng FM stations, sila yung number one. Kayo, gusto ba yung maging number one? To be on top, to be number one, is often understood as holding more power, having more wealth, being more popular, having more achievements. That is why greatness in the world is climbing towards the top of the ladder. I also do not see anything wrong with the desire to have more power, more wealth, more popular, or being on top. The ethical problem lies on how we achieve our goal to be on top. And what is our motivation in desiring it? And how we use such greatness. Most often than not, those people who are hard loser would use all means, even the wrong ones and evil means, just to achieve their goal to be in the higher position. And this kind of attitude would lead him or her toward selfishness. Everything is done for himself or herself. And this means that he or she uses his or her power, her wealth, his wealth, popularity, for his or her own sake, for his or her own good. My brothers and sisters, when selfishness dominates the world, there will always be chaos. There will always be conflicts. There will always be wars. St. James in our second reading teaches us, and I quote, "Where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice." And selfish people do not accept corrections from others, even the fraternal ones. Sometimes they will begrudge someone who does the correction. This is what the book of wisdom shows us in our first reading. And I quote, "The wicked say, 'Let us beset the just one, because he is obnoxious to us. He sets himself against our doings, reproaches us for transgressions of the law, and charges us with the violations of our training.'" My sisters and brothers, we can picture out the negative situation when selfishness dominates our lives. In fact, selfish people are not just putting themselves into any negative situations. They are making their life miserable. From an unknown source comes an article titled, "How to be Miserable." Do you want to be miserable? But how to be miserable? It says, think about yourself. Talk about yourself. Use I as often as possible. Mirror yourself continually in the opinion of others. Listen greedily to what people say about you. Expect to be appreciated and recognized. Be suspicious, be jealous and envious. Be sensitive to slights. Never forgive a criticism. Trust nobody but yourself. Insist on consideration and respect. Demand agreement with your own views on everything. Ikaw lang musunod, ako ang musunod dapat, di ba? Sulk if people are not grateful to you for favor shown to them. Never forget a service you have rendered, and strict your duties if you can. Do as little as possible for others. So if you want to be miserable, I hope not. Think about yourself. Talk about yourself. In other words, be self-centered. These show us, my brothers and sisters, that the understanding of greatness in a worldly plane brings someone who desires it towards selfishness, towards a miserable life. And our God, who is always after our own good, our God who doesn't want us to be selfish, our God who doesn't want us to have a miserable life, is teaching us through our readings today the Christian meaning of greatness. He wants us to know it by heart and live it our lives according to its meaning. So we ask, what is the greatness according to the teachings of Jesus Christ? Greatness for Jesus is servanthood. To be great is to be the servant of all. In the Gospel, Jesus says, if anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and servant of all. In other words, to be great is to take the stance of humility. Magiging mapagkumbaba po tayo. Therefore, we can say that in Christian understanding, to be great is to be humble servant of all. Why is servanthood a crucial element of greatness? We see in the second reading that selfish interest would bring about unhealthy competition, chaos, suffering, etc., etc. In contrast, the spirit of service would bring joy, prosperity, peace in our lives. In service, people would benefit from the greatness of one person. Instead of raising himself above others, the true servant raises others with him or with her. Thus, whoever excels in serving is great in the eyes of God. That is why the Lord Jesus is the greatest, precisely because He is the servant of all, giving His life for the well-being of the community. The stance of being humble servant, when we are trying to build an attitude of being a humble servant, it brings us to be other-centered, that is, to be selfless. If we are in power, if we have wealth, if we are popular, so be it. Sino bang mayayaman dito? Sino bang mahawak dito ng malalaking posisyon? Meron pa. Kung andyan na kayo, so be it. The one who understands and lives out the Christian meaning of greatness uses his or her power, wealth, popularity, and all his or her achievements for the service of all, especially to the needy. And on the other hand, those who have no great power, those who have no great wealth, and the unpopular need not to strive to have them. Hindi na kailangan na susukitin natin yun, na magkaroon tayo ng maraming pera. We do not need to be in position. We do not need to have lots of money and to be well known in order to serve our brothers and sisters. We can serve them in many ways, even in our own little ways. God does not measure our service by what we have, but by how we selflessly and lovingly share even the little we have. That is why the service we render must be a service with no expectation of reward or even recognition. It is a service given without wanting to be known and be applauded. It is a service given out of Christian love, most especially to the least, the lost, and the last in our community. Servanthood or other-centeredness gives us a sense of happiness, and it gives meaning to our lives. Hindi ba kayo masaya kung nakatulong kayo sa iba? Di ba nararamdaman natin yun sa puso natin? Pag may natulungan ka, iba yung feeling. And nagbibigay yun ng halaga at saka meaning sa ating buhay. So my brothers and sisters, we discern very clearly here that Jesus' teaching on greatness is diametrically opposed to the value system of this world. While on one hand, the secular values nudge each one of us to work tooth and nail for upward mobility, growing up the ladder of social hierarchy for greater power, greater honor, and wealth. That is the teachings of the world. On the other hand, the values of God's kingdom invites us to a free decision to take the route of downward mobility, finding greatness in humility and service of the least. My brothers and sisters, sabi ko kanina, hindi mali when we desire for greatness. The Lord wants every one of us to be great, with full happiness and meaning of greatness. So if we want that kind of greatness, let us listen to His words in the Gospel. If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all